is a really good series. Out of all the Freedom McFadden books that I've read, I think the Housemaid series is my favorite. And I cannot wait for the third one to come out. I think it comes out in June or July of 2024. So I am really looking forward to that. My next book is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. One of my really good friends lent me this book a long time ago, probably like a couple of years ago, and it's just been sitting on my bookshelf and I kind of completely forgot about it. I was going through all my books last month and I came across this, and I had been reading some pretty dark books at the time and I really wanted something lighter. I had wanted to dip my toes into the fantasy world, and I thought this was a really good book to start with. The circus arrives without warning. No announcements precede it. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. Within the black and white striped canvas tents is an utterly unique experience full of breathtaking amazements. It's called Le Cirque des Rêves. I should have looked up how to say that before this. Oh my god. And it is only open at night. But behind the scenes, a fierce competition is underway. A duel between two young magicians, Cecilia and Marco, who have been trained since childhood expressly for this purpose by their mercurial instructors. Unbeknownst to them both, this is a game in which only one can be left standing. Amidst the high stakes, Celia and Marco soon tumble headfirst into love, setting off a domino effect of dangerous consequences, and leaving the lives of everyone from the performers to the patrons hanging in the balance. This book was wonderful. I know that it is a really polarizing book. A lot of people say that it doesn't have any plot, and I would argue that it actually has several plots. It is kind of told in a fragmented have been